This is your 911. Don't look at the cost. Hunt Hamas. Hunt Hamas. Hunt Hamas. Make sure that every other extremist knows that whoever attacks the citizens of Israel like a coward, they will be hunted and they will be destroyed like Al-Qaeda was destroyed. The Patriotic Alliance stand with the state of Israel. The Patriotic Alliance stand with the Jewish people. Salute ons Baizani.
Leaves you absolutely cold, doesn't it, when you hear such rhetoric by supposed leaders and people who were exposed to the apartheid era as well. And you kind of wonder, what are they thinking? Are they bought over? Have they been captured? That's the only thing I can think about. Okay, online we have Dr. Allan Boesak, and it does give me such great pleasure to be talking to an activist of his caliber. I remember in the days of apartheid how very vociferous he was about apartheid and just what we were subjugated to in those dark days of apartheid. He's online today to talk to us about obviously a very serious matter, and that is his interaction with Gayton McKenzie. And we understand that Dr. Allan Boesak has withdrawn his support for a proposal made by the PA to rename Louis Botha Avenue in Johannesburg after him, following the PA leader Gayton McKenzie's support for Israel. I live in the Johannesburg area and I do travel on this road pretty regularly. So I think for the rest of my life, I'll always think of Dr. Allan Boesak when I'm on that road. A very good morning to you and welcome to the program.
Good morning, Julie. It's good to be you, and good morning to all of your listeners.
So you are forever going to be on my mind when I'm on that road. Let's understand what went down here with the renaming of this road. And of course, it is an honor to be approached to have a road or a building or an area or a school or a hospital, whatever it is, to be renamed after you, because it's recognition of your life's work of activism. At the time you were approached, how did you feel about it? And talk to us about the events that subsequently followed. But before you respond to that, your response to that clip we viewed with Kenny Kunene.
I mean, I've seen that clip, Julie, a number of times, but every time I see it, it shocks me to the core. And it is incomprehensible to me that a Black South African who has lived through apartheid, certainly for most of his life, because Mr. Kunene is fairly young still, but that he could speak such language. And the language of pure hatred and pure revenge for something that he clearly does not understand. And he's not calling for Hamas to be killed. And if he thinks a little deeper, he will know that. He's calling for every Palestinian to be killed, for every Palestinian woman, man, and child to be murdered as they are being slaughtered this very day. I'm sure he does not understand that this is not a war that started on October 7th. This is a war that started 75 years ago with the beginning of the Nakba. He does not understand, it seems to me, that this is a war that wants to permanentize an occupation. He doesn't see that this has been a war of extermination for Palestinians for 75 years. And that what we are seeing right now is simply Israel taking one more step towards that final extinction of the Palestinian people and the final bit of land that they have been stealing for so long. So he doesn't understand either the historic context, he does not understand the human context, he doesn't understand the political and the social context. And so when I see that clip, it makes me feel deeply, deeply, deeply angry. It also makes me feel ashamed that a black South African chooses to stand on the side of war criminals, unashamedly war criminals, and they defend it and justify it every minute of the day, and that he can say so publicly. I just cannot understand it. And so it seems to me that what Mr. Kuneni and Mr. McKenzie do not really understand is that they have just put their own political party beyond the pale. All thinking South Africans, all faithful South Africans, all South Africans who remember our struggle will now know what the Patriotic Alliance is. That was a bit of a long response, but it does get me, and I apologize, but it does get me emotional and angry every time I see that.
Please don't apologize. We do, like the context that you've given to that question. And it's very important simply because when you go to the SABC and other such channels, I've been watching with shock and horror at the number of young, not only young and old, Black South Africans supporting the Israeli cause. And I wonder, do they understand the context of this? And, in my mind, this is the second Nakba. This is definitely the second Nakba. And I don't think they either are absolutely ignorant, that is why they are voicing what they do voice, or like Kenny Kuneni and the PA, they are absolutely captured. We now know who is funding that party.
Yeah.
It's the Zionists funding
That's
that
right.
party.
That's
So
right.
that's where we're at. But how do we, Dr. Boesak, and we will get back to the renaming of the street, but how do we start conscientizing young people to understand exactly, the history of Palestine and the Zionism? Because we are not anti-Jew at all. We are
No,
anti-Zionism.
no.
We need to make that difference. And how do we conscientize the ignorant people who don't understand this conflict at all?
Well, I mean, it is about education. I have been learning about the conflict between Palestine and Israel, not just from my Palestinian brothers and sisters. And I have been privileged to visit there once and not been allowed back again, of course, but also from Jews that I got to know, who are passionately Jewish, but passionately anti what Israel is doing right now. I mean, it's not for nothing that the organization by the name Not in My Name has been growing. I have seen and worked with young Jewish students when I was in the United States who, because of their solidarity with Palestine, have been dragged before disciplinary committees of universities, have been named and shamed by people, have been reviled. And so I know that the feelings that we have, much of it is shared by Jews themselves. And so that's the one question. The other question about how do they know so little is education. You will be surprised, Julie, how many of our young people don't even know about our own struggle. I have spoken at places where a young lady has said to me that this is the first time, and she's got a degree from UWC, the University of the Western Cape. She's got an advanced degree from the University of Cape Town. She's gone through high school. She said to me, it's the first time that I have heard of the United Democratic Front and the role that you have played in it. It's because we are not told that. It's only now, for the first time, the last year or two, that part of our history is being taught in our history books. Now, imagine if your own history of your own struggle for freedom is not taught in schools to our children. What will they know about the struggle of the Palestinians? What do they know about the Nakba? What do they know about the fact that when Jews first settled in Palestine permanently, this 1917, that the map of the land belonging to Palestinians and the bits or pieces of land that were given to the Zionist settlers, that has been totally overrun. That now 90% of the land is in the hand of settler colonialists. And what do they know about settler colonialism? And so it is our responsibility. And we must not allow political parties who, for their own political gain and for money, have sold their soul and now want to sell our people down the same river of shame, because that's what it is. They will be drowning our people in a river of shame, and that river will not be water, it will be the blood of Palestinian children. And so we have to be passionate, we have to be convicted, we have to be clear, we have to be unapologetic in our solidarity with the Palestinians, and we have to teach every single time we get the opportunity, tell our people about what the real history is, and to stop the lies that are being spread through propaganda, through media or books or whatever else, or by politicians who think only of themselves.
When I read all of the accounts and follow, different programs on international TV stations, etc., and when I hear politicians talking, not only in South Africa but internationally, when we hear the UN, the EU, and everything that's playing out in the rest of the world, because we do know that we've become a global village, and if something happens, in South Africa or in the Middle East, the repercussions are going to be felt globally. And of course, this is the nature of the world we're living in the 21st century. And with so much of information at our fingertips, we still find that the masses seem to be ignorant regarding the Palestinian struggle and any other struggle, any other nation that is subjugated. You look at the Rohingya people, you look at the Uyghurs in China, the Kashmiri situation, and the list goes on. And you can't believe that in this day and age, in the age of AI, we've sent men to the moon, and we are still struggling with apartheid all around the world. What is
It's a
going
mindset.
wrong?
It's a mindset. It's a mindset. I mean, we have been talking about Biko's very true saying that the strongest weapon in the hand of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. As long as you have that colonized mind, as long as you allow yourself to hear only the voices because they are loudest and because they sound wealthiest and they sound more powerful. And that shapes your opinion and it shapes your convictions. That's when we end up where we are now. For me, though, that means the challenge is just so much greater. I will never give up speaking about this. And my starting point is always because I know on this issue, we are absolutely right. We are not in the wrong. And the fact that we are in the right is being proven day after day after day. I will ask those young people who do not think any further just to look at what is happening at children and ask yourself, what will you do if your mother is stopped at a gate? The hospital is 20 minutes away by car. She is pregnant with another child. That baby has to be born in the street and dies in the street because a soldier, one kid with a gun, is standing there and telling her, I'm not letting you through. What kind of a life is that? What is that? What does that say about me as a person? Never mind that we've had a struggle like that, just about me as a person, standing there thinking, what is happening here? What does it do to you if you do not see how wrong that is? If you do not see how dehumanizing it is, not to the Palestinian only, but to me, watching this and not saying anything and not opening my mouth and not standing in solidarity with them. So it's a question of how are we taught. And don't forget, South Africa, and especially young people, go to these churches that are full of what we call Christian Zionists. And they have this distorted reading of scripture, out of which they learn that Israel is right because it's God's chosen people. Well, if the God that you have chosen for yourself And the God that you pray to is a God that relishes the death of children, that relishes the fact that one particular corner and enclose a concentration camp out of which people cannot escape is bombed incessantly every day, with hospitals targeted, with babies in those hospitals and women and men, and water cut off, electricity cut off, and people smiling and mocking Palestinians about that. I mean, what does it say of you and what does it say of your God? But these are the questions that are, of course, never raised, except if we raise those questions. And so that is what we need to do. We know that we are right. We know that Palestinians have a just cause. We know that Palestinians are fighting for their freedom. We know that this has been going on for far too long. And we know that we have a calling, a God-given calling, to stand with them because they are wronged and they are robbed of their land and their dignity and of justice. And they have a right to all of these. And so for these reasons, we have to answer the call. And that's what we need to do. And if we do it with conviction, and if we do it with passion, and if we do it consistently, I know that the rightness and the righteousness of the way in which we do this and we serve this cause will break through, even through the toughest mind. And even the Gayton Mackenzies and the Kenny Kunenis will not be able to stop the truth, because when truth crushed to earth rises again, it rises to stay.
Okay, Dr. Boesak, what I'm going to do is take advantage of the fact that I have you online today. I'm going to stretch this because there's so many more questions that I need to put to you. We're going to go for an ad break and come back. But what I also want to put to you is that you yourself are a man of the cloth. How do you respond to the Zionists who absolutely insist that Palestine was the promised land of the Zionists? And we're talking 2,000 years ago. Anybody can misrepresent or misunderstand scripture. So I'm wondering, how do we respond to something like that? Does it mean if you claim that God has promised this land to the Zionists 2,000 years ago in the First Testament, supposedly, and is, of course, open to interpretation? How do we, in this day and age, respond? And what about the people that inhabited the land 2,000 years ago? They were not necessarily Zionists.
No.
They were not
Okay.
white people with blue eyes and blonde hair. They were brown people like you and I. So hold that thought. We'll be back with you in a minute.
Will do. Thank you.
Listen to something fresh. Listen to Salam Media, your humanitarian broadcaster.
Online schooling? Why not? Kurtuba Online Academy is the leading global online Islamic school from grade R to matric, offering South African caps and international syllabus. And it doesn't stop there. We also offer online madrasa for every grade. For more information, visit www.kurtubaonline.co.za. Kurtuba Online Academy, the leading global online Islamic school.
At Sentio, our Invest for Good philosophy is based on a genuine desire to use our investment skills for the benefit of broader society by investing responsibly, giving charitably, and developing talent that will transform the investment industry. Visit www.sentio-capital.com for more information about our Sharia investment products and start saving with us today. Sentio Capital. Invest for good. Sentio Capital Management is an authorized financial services provider.
The people of Palestine need your support now. Africa Muslims Agency is on the ground, already providing food, medication, and emergency supplies in Gaza. Donate any amount to Heal Palestine at africamuslimsagency.co.za. Africa Muslims Agency, empowering, educating, inspiring.
Kids these days are smart, and when you're competing for their attention against their smartphones, you need to make smart choices, like using Sunfoil triple refined pure sunflower oil in every meal you make. It's naturally cholesterol-free and approved by the Heart and Stroke Foundation as part of a balanced eating plan. So whether you're cooking, frying, or baking, you get the great tasting results that'll get their attention faster than the latest app. And if that doesn't work, change the Wi-Fi password. Sunfoil. Now we're cooking.
With so many investment options today, it's only natural that you might feel a little confused which route to take. Should I buy shares or should I invest in gold bullion? Randery Jewelers now brings you the Zahab coin, an alternative to the Kruger Rand. The Zahab coin, a solid wealth protector in its purest form of 24-karat gold, is the safest way to protect your wealth. So don't just sit there and watch your paper money depreciate. Change to gold. Call Randery Jewelers now at 031 202 4701 or visit www.rjcoin.co.za, situated at 151 Essenwood Road, Musgrave, Durban. Randery Jewelers, the family name you can trust.
SANZAF's Meals Distribution Project aims to create food security for those in need. By supporting our program, you can help us in our mission to provide access to nutritious meals on a daily basis and help us extend our reach. Join SANZAF in the fight against hunger by contributing to our food security initiatives. To learn more, visit sanzaf.org.za or call 011 834 6046. SANZAF, changing lives through development and relief.
Listen to something fresh. Listen to Salam Media, your humanitarian broadcaster.
It's exactly 8:48 a.m. News and views on Salam Media. My guest is anti-apartheid activist Dr. Allan Boesak. We're talking about, obviously, the war in Palestine. Welcome back, Dr. Boesak. Would you like to respond to my statement just before the ad break?
Yes, thank you, Julie. It is, of course, a matter of how one interprets the scriptures. But I mean, that is the way South African whites interpreted the scriptures when they came to colonize our land and to genocide our people. And they went to the First Testament. That's the same argument that white Americans used to justify the stealing of the land of the Native Americans. And so you get this thing repeated through history, and it's all connected with conquest and with genocide and with land theft and with domination and hegemony. And so this is what we see in Israel today. And if you listen to Mr. Smotrich, the man who is now Minister of Finance in Netanyahu's cabinet, he was most explicit, more than anyone, about what his idea is. He goes back to the book of Joshua, specifically chapter 6, I think is verses 24, 25, and 26, where God is supposed to give Joshua the instruction: you go there, you take this land, you conquer the people, and you kill everyone in sight. Is what they call the herem, the holy war. But you do it in God's name, because it is God's will that you inherit the land, because you are God's chosen. But you should remember one thing: that is only one tradition in the Hebrew Bible. If you go from Joshua to the book of Judges, even the first chapter and the first verse and the second verse, it says that Israel had not come to conquer the people of the land of Canaan, and that they were living peacefully together, which seems to me is more like when they left Egypt as a slave people, now a free people. They came into Canaan and they were welcomed by the indigenous peoples of that land. So it was a whole different kind of process. The God that they talk about, a God of genocide, a God of destruction and death, and reveling in that death without any distinction. So that to me is a God I do not discover, not even in the First Testament, never mind the Second Testament. So I always say to people, one of the deepest problems of people who think like that, both Jews and Christians, is the selectivity with which we read scripture. And those portions which seem to fit our current political ideology, and especially if that ideology benefits us and give us a position of power and dominance, that's the God that we hold up. But the God that says you will not lift up the sword, and the sword will be no more, and I will abolish war from the face of the earth, which is just a few books down in the book of Isaiah, that God we ignore and that God we disown. Think about the idolatry that means. Think about what it means to tell God that you will be what I will want you to be according to my desires for political power, political dominance, and for killing. So it's bloodlust and land lust and power lust that is driving me, not faith. So we need to make that very, very clear so that people of faith will have the discernment that when you speak about God, the first question that we ask is, whose God are you talking about? What God is this that you are lifting up? What God is it that you worship? And do you really worship this bloodthirsty, genocidal God that you're holding up? And for Christians to then go on to say that God is in fact the God of Jesus of Nazareth, that's blasphemy upon blasphemy upon blasphemy. And so we must not be afraid to say this and to expose this false teaching and to expose the idolatry that is in this false teaching and to make sure that people know exactly what they're saying when they're saying these things.
Okay, Dr. Boesak, let me also, my understanding, all right, the question is Zionism a political ideology or a religion? That's a question from me. And then we have Marietta van Rensburg, who is saying, what is wrong to be a Zionist? It's a religion. You can't force one religion onto another. So that's her comment. If you'd like to respond to both, if you don't mind.
Let me quickly say that no, there is a very, very fundamental difference between Judaism as a religion and Zionism as a political ideology. Judaism as a religion is thousands of years old. Zionist ideology is a creation of the early 19th century. It is a specific nationalistic, ethnic nationalistic, racialist nationalistic ideology that claims things for Jews that religion, the Judeo religion, does not claim. And so we must not make the mistake. That's why we have so many Jews who say, I am a Jew. And I am proud to be a Jew, but I am not a Zionist. I am a Jew because of my faith, but I'm not a Zionist because Zionism as a political ideology, with the consequences that we have seen since 1917, at least before that, but at least since 1917, and especially since 1948, and the duration of the Nakba and the extermination of the Palestinian people as a project of new settler colonialism, that is Zionism. That's got nothing to do with the faith of Miriam that I find in the First Testament, who has become, for me, the guiding star as to how to understand the history of the liberation of Israel in the Exodus from slavery in Egypt, as that story is told in that sacred book. And so please don't make that mistake. And so once you understand that, then you will understand why there are so many Jews and a growing number of them who want to make the distinction between their existence and their faith as Jews and the ideology of Zionism that is the heart of the politics of Netanyahu's government and people like him. But there is a difference. Don't make all Jews Zionists. Don't make that mistake because it is simply not true.
Okay, we've got a few minutes to wrap up time. I think about 4 minutes before we wrap up. Let's ask this all-important question then, and we're going to come to that street name. That was the starting point of our of our discussion this morning, and obviously this is such a deep issue that's impacting globally that we can't just leave it at the street name and then not have these other very meaningful discussions. I'm also wondering, in the 21st century, you would have thought that by now people would have been more aware of other people's rights. We've been through so many wars globally, the First and the Second World Wars. Prior to that, we had the Jewish Holocaust. And because of that, you would have thought that Jewish people, that there would never have been something like Zionism, because their forefathers went through the horrors of the Nazi concentration camps. They were the victims of the Holocaust. So you can't begin to imagine that these people, the grandchildren, children and grandchildren of those people that suffered so terribly by the Germans, would perpetrate possibly the very same thing, if not worse, on the Palestinians.
Well, part of the human condition is that we are so loath to learn from history and from our own mistakes. And one of the mistakes here, I mean, people forget that the reason why the UK, especially, and the countries in Europe and the United States created a Palestine, a Jewish state called Israel in Palestine, was because they knew the Jews stood no chance, had no future of a human existence in Europe. So the anti-Semitism of the Germans and of others in Europe is what created the state of Israel. That's number one. Because the British didn't want them there, and the United States didn't want them there. So give them a land of their own where they can be as far away from us as possible, and we will make up for our bad conscience by giving them lots of money and keeping them in arms so that they could oppress another people and steal another people's land. Because Europeans have so become used to doing that. That's their modus operation. That's number one. Number two is, so they transferred, these white people in the United States and in Europe, they transferred their guilt for what they have done to Jews, for their anti-Semitism and for the Holocaust. They transferred that guilt onto the Palestinians, and they act as it is the Palestinians who now have to pay the price for what the Germans and other Europeans have done to them, which is another unspeakable thing. But think of what that makes you. If you decide that in order now to safeguard myself, I cannot live in peace with other people. I have to exterminate them. I have to dominate them. I have to steal their land. I have to break down their dignity so that there is nothing left. If that is the way I choose to live, and that's Israel's choice. That's not the Palestinian choice. That's Israel's choice. I predict that a people who live like that, with that mindset, with that heart, if they are that kind of people, they have no future, and no war and no domination with weapons from the air or the sea or wherever on the ground will exterminate that hatred. It will exacerbate it, and it will ensure your own destruction. And it will not kill the genuine and legitimate feelings for and longings for justice and freedom and land, which is your own, that live in the hearts of the Palestinian people. That's why I said in the beginning, screaming about Hamas, Hamas, Hamas is just a slogan. It's not Hamas. It is the Palestinian people rising up to their God-given responsibility to secure a future for their children and for themselves with dignity and with peace and with security. That is what is happening here.
Okay, the social media platforms are going crazy. I can't read out all those messages, but you can visit those pages, Facebook and others, once the interview is over, Dr. Boesak. Suffice to say that Nazima Taladia says, thanks to Dr. Boesak for always remaining on the side of the oppressed. And of course, at the beginning of the interview, I did say to you that we salute you for that. We're going to wrap up now, and let's come to the renaming of Louis Botha Avenue to Dr. Allan Boesak Street.
Finally.
Your thoughts, and you would have gone down in history. You would have been remembered for generations and generations to come, and yet you decided not to. Tell us why.
Well, Julie, it is an honor. I mean, no doubt about that. And when they approached me, I saw it as such an honor. And their approach was, we want to rename this street in your name, because we want to recognize the contribution that you have made to the struggle. But they also said that I was going to be the first of several people, because they had plans that not only me, but others also, with perhaps a greater contribution to the struggle that I have made, will also be honored in this way. And of course, one does not say no to such a thing. But, when this clip came out, and where I saw where Mr. Kanani stands, and where Mr. McKinsey stands, and where their party stands on this particular issue, I had to ask myself, is securing in this way my legacy, or being honored in this way, is it really worth it? The lives of Palestinian children, the dignity of the Palestinian people, that I will sacrifice because I want a bit of glory for myself. I can't that.
Whoops, and there we've lost Dr. Allan. Oh, there's he's back again.
No, I'm back. No, I was just going to say, no honor on earth, not even that or anything else, would make me give up my conviction that my first responsibility and duty in life is to stand with whoever is oppressed and wronged, and fighting for their freedom. And in this case, the Palestinians are, for me, the prime example, almost the litmus test of right and wrong. I mean, if somebody says to me, I have political integrity, my first question would be, where do you stand on the Palestinian question? If somebody says to me, I am a person of faith, my first question would be, your authenticity hangs for me on whether you are on the right side of the Palestinian question. Today, that is unquestionably the core of what describes us as decent and honest human beings with integrity and faith that we can proudly teach our children about.
Dr. Allan Boesak, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you this morning. I do want to have future conversations with you about a whole host of other issues, particularly the state of our country, but obviously Palestine is high on the agenda. Let's focus on that for now. But in future, I do want to, really pick your brain on a whole host of issues. What a pleasure to have had you on the show. Thank you indeed. God bless. And I'll say from my side, the universal greeting, Assalamu alaikum. That means peace be with you.
Wa alaikum assalam. Thank you so very much. Greetings to you all.
It is exactly 9:03 News and Views on Salam Media. Standing by to join us now is our news correspondent, Zai Jadwood, with a bulletin of the morning.